And hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are joining us from. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood, yo, and you are catching me at 58 hours. That's right, 58 hours. I'm doing a check-in on this amazing 72-hour fast that I've been on. As you know, we started a new series, New Year, New You, right? You'll see the logos all around, New Year, New You. And our goal in this year, right? I was about to say month, but our goal in this year is to take charge of our health and take charge of our lives. In particular, this year, we're talking about how do we decrease, eliminate our diabetes medication. We're talking about type 2 diabetics, people who are adults with type 2 diabetes. And our goal is to this year get off of as much medication as we possibly can. And in fact, how do we put our diabetes in remission? And that's our goal, right? We're closing in on the finish line. One of the tools that we're using is fasting. And over the last 3 weeks, I've done a 72-hour fast each week. This is the third week that I'm doing it. And here I am doing a check-in so you could see where I am, see my numbers. I'll share that with you here in just a minute. And talk through a couple of things, right? So let's start by talking about how I feel, right? At 58 hours, and I started about 12:30 early Wednesday morning. At 58 hours, I am really feeling well, right? It's fascinating to observe. There have been some occasions over the course of the last day or two. And I've mentioned before in our other check-ins that I need to make sure that I'm staying hydrated. That's the big thing, right? So I want to make sure that I'm staying hydrated. I want to make that point to you. If you are going to, or when you are in your fast, you want to make sure you're hydrated. We'll come back and we'll talk later about hydration and what needs to happen there. The other thing is I need to make sure that I'm getting good rest. As you know, I work late at night here in this space. And so over the course of the last 3 weeks, I have been more intentional about making sure that I am getting rest. Okay. Once again, another one of those shows that we'll have to do to talk about sleep, because sleep not only affects the fasting, but it also affects our cravings, it affects our energy, it affects our cortisol level, and those have big ramifications in how we are going to be able to be successful in the management of our diabetes. Okay, blood sugars. Let's take a look, right? And so I've been tracking my blood sugars, and as you know, if you may remember, that I have 2 glucose monitors on, and one is a Dexcom and one is a Libre. And so I've been sharing with you what those various devices have shown, and then I also have my Keto Mojo meter, and let me go ahead and just show you that that's sitting right over there ready and waiting for me to check that. But let's hop over and let's talk about our this is our Dexcom. So right now the Dexcom says that my blood sugar is 80. I'll come back and show you a couple graphs here in a minute. Let's pop over, and here you see the Libre, and the Libre says right now I am 66. Right, Libre says I'm 66. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and let's pop over here and let's go ahead and check the blood sugar. Let's check our ketones, and so we can see exactly where those are. And then we'll come back and I'll show you a couple of graphs. We'll do a little show and tell for what's been going on over the last couple of days. So right now, so you see I have my meter, and I have my Lancet, I have my keto strip, and I have my glucose strip. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to let's start with the glucose today. Stick that in the meter. All right, I'll get my Lancet. And as I told you before, I simply use the Lancet itself. I don't use a lancing device. That's just my personal preference. And so I will massage, and there is our drop of blood that will be pulled right into the strip. And there in about 10 seconds, we'll get a number. And while that's doing, I'm going to go ahead and continue milking. And so my blood sugar right now is 72. I'm going to take that out and insert the keto strip. And I have another drop of blood, and we will go ahead and apply that. And that should give us a number there in about 10 seconds as well. Okay, so once that's done, then we'll go ahead to our app and import it into the system. And so ketones right now are 3.7, right? So that is actually pretty high, which means that I am well into ketosis. So let's hop over and let's get to our Keto Mojo app. Let's pull that up, and hopefully it will go ahead and pull that in. If not, we'll hit the button and allow it to sync. And right there, it is starting to sync, and you'll see that here in just a second. And so it pulled everything over. Okay, and when we talk about ketones, and let me make a clarification. I think in one of the check-ins I did, I was talking about ketones and GKI, and I may have turned those around. So in the ketogenesis, right? Remember the goal for our ketosis, whether you're doing fasting or whether you're doing a ketogenic diet, and even sometimes low carb diet, the goal in the ketogenic diet and in the fasting is to get your bodies to switch over from burning sugar to burning ketones. So the process is this. Your body first goes to the blood sugar that's floating around in your blood for energy. And it's using that for things like speaking, for moving, for your heart, for breathing, right? So all the things that your body needs to do to keep you alive, it goes and it gets energy for that. So the first place it goes is it goes into the blood and it finds the sugars that are there, the glucose. It burns those. When that store is low, then it has to find it elsewhere. And the most ready source of that is from your liver, right? And in the form of glycogen. So it goes to the liver, breaks down the glycogen, and uses that to continue the process. When the glycogen stores go down, then the body now has to find additional sources of energy, and that's when it switches and goes and starts burning fat. And in the process of burning fat, then we get ketones. So that's where ketones, that's where the phrase ketones come from. It is a byproduct, if you will, of the burning of fat in the body. When you first start fasting, right, when you get into the first hours of what we call a fast, the body is not burning fat. It is still using the glucose that is in the blood. It is still using the glucose that it constructs from breaking down glycogen. So it's not until you are into the fast that the body then turns to fat burning and we get ketones. A couple of points there is that when you eat, the first 4 to 5 hours, the body is digesting the food, absorbing it. So people say, well, I fasted for 5 hours. Well, if you ate 5 hours ago, you're really not in a fasting state, right? So the fasting state does not occur. In fact, the body is able to store enough glycogen for about 24 hours. I mean, people say 18 to 24 hours. Okay, so 18 to 24 hours. And then it starts saying, hey, I've got to find energy somewhere else. And then it goes and begins breaking down the ketones or producing ketones because it's breaking down fat, if that makes sense. Okay. And we'll talk more about that process. So going back to our Keto Mojo meter, and you'll see this is a meter that allows us to check both blood sugar and ketones. And you saw that as we did it. So my glucose right now is 72 milligrams per deciliter. If you're in another country, you would divide that by 18, and that will give you what your glucose level is. And then the ketones are 3.7. 3.7. And the glucoketo index is simply a division of the glucose by the ketones. Okay, so in this case, and it has to be converted. I won't get into all of that right now, but basically dividing glucose by ketones gives us the glucoketo index, and we'll come back and do a show on that. I need to start writing these down because there are definitely things that I want us to go through. Okay, so in order for us to say, hey, we're in ketosis. And you'll see down here on the meter, it says you're in highest therapeutic level of GKI. We want our GKI, that is the index, to be low. We want the ketones to be high, and we want the blood sugar to be low as well. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so let's go back, and I want to kind of scroll back through, and let's see if well, actually, why don't I just show you the graph? So this is the graph of where I am right now. Okay, so all the way to the right, our ketones were 3.7 and our glucose was 72. Okay, so as the glucose goes down, the insulin level drops as well in the body. That's a whole nother conversation. And the ketones rise because the body has to now go and it has to burn fat. And in burning the fat, ketones are produced. And you can see as we've gone through the fast, right? And so let's see, we started here Wednesday, about Wednesday morning, and the ketones were at 1. In fact, I think there was a point where they were below 1. I think that's Tuesday night, because I hadn't eaten yet. Okay, so Tuesday night my ketones were actually 0.9, and as we went through the into the next morning, right, Wednesday, and you'll see right here. Let me put this over so you can see right here. Look at how the ketones and the blood sugars cross, right? And then as the blood sugars got lower, the ketones got higher. Ketones stayed higher than the glucose. And then and then of course now where we are in our current fast, 58 hours. So 58 hours in. Okay. So one of the questions that I had, and let's pop over, and I want to show you. Actually, let me do this one. I want to do a bigger graph. Let's see. Let's do this one. Okay. So here we can see, and here we can see a graph, and this is the Libre report. This is the Libre report. I also have the Dexcom, and I'll pop that up here in just a minute. And let me get my mouse so I can actually show you guys some things. Here we go. Yeah. So we started the fast right about here. Okay, so Wednesday at about 12:30, and hopefully you guys can you see that? Maybe not. Let's see. Yeah, so we started the fast right about 12:30. Okay, so that's moving. I don't want that to move, but that's okay. So we started there right about 12:30, and as we went through the course of the day, right, the blood sugars dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped, and so continued going down here, and that's the course of Wednesday, and then on Thursday, and I'm drawing, but I don't think you guys can see what I'm drawing. I'm not sure what's going on there, but coming into Thursday, you see the blood sugars continue to drop, and they kind of straddled the line, right? 70, 70, 70, 70, 70. And it wasn't until this morning, right, that you actually saw, well, actually, let me back up. So on Thursday, right, if you look at Thursday at the bottom of that graph, those dark lines, those dots that you may make out there, those are times when the blood sugar actually is dropping below 70, right? So we'd go dip below 70, come back up, dip below 70, come back up. And at the end of the day, at the end of the day is when into, maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night and into the next morning is when the blood sugars kind of dipped and stayed below 70. And then down on Friday, the very last row that you'll see there, you'll see the red, and that was coming into this morning, right? So I'm going to go back over and let me show you what this looks like on my glucose meter, right? And see down at the bottom, you see the red, right? So the blood sugar drops below 70 and it kind of stays there. And then it actually comes back up and then dips again. So question for you guys, if you're out there watching, why did my blood sugar rise again? If I was low, I hadn't eaten at this point. I mean, we're talking 50 hours. Where does the body get the sugar to cause the blood sugar to go up? Yeah, so it switched. It's finding now energy from elsewhere. Right, so it is in the process, and my ketones at that point, my ketones would probably have to be about 2, maybe 2.5, maybe 3, and so definitely now we know that we are burning, we're burning fat, and so that's where the ketones are coming from, and so right now, even though my blood sugar is 66, right, I am not feeling lightheaded, I'm not feeling low. And if you're out there, you know what it feels like when, like for instance, if you've taken too much insulin or you're taking some medication and that blood sugar drops, you know what it feels like, that kind of jitteriness that you have when the blood sugar dips below 70. Now, here's an interesting point. There are people out there who live in the 60s. I mean, 65, 67, 69. If you take an athlete, someone who is in very good shape, if you check their blood sugars in the morning, their blood sugars are not 80, 90, 100. We say that 80 to 100 is considered normal, right? But for someone who is in peak physical health, they can have blood sugars in the 60s and it not be a problem for them. I often tell patients when we talk about blood sugars and A1Cs and where we want them to be, a lot of people will say, I want my A1C to be 5. And I'll say to them, that's great. I would love for that to be the case, except I don't want you on medication with an A1C of 5. Right? Why? Because the medication does not know that you're low, and the medication just keeps working. So when you're off of medication, we drive that A1C down as much as we can. Right? But if you're on insulin with an A1C of 5, you're having some significant hypoglycemic episodes, and you will feel those because the insulin is artificially driving the blood sugar down. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. All right, let's see. So I do see some folks out there. Let's see who we have. Joe. Hey, Joe. Welcome, man. Joe says, do you have, let me go back. Do you have a veggie drink or fruit drink or vitamin drink with your hydration? I'm elderly and afraid that I'll get lightheaded after periods of fasting. He goes on. Well, let me answer that question. So Joe, I currently don't take in anything that has calories. Right? I don't take in anything that has calories. And I actually try not to do anything that has a lot of caffeine. I do drink some tea. And this is unsweetened tea, and water. So those are the two things that I use right now. I mentioned before that I think it was yesterday, I had not done a good job of maintaining hydration. So I usually put an alarm on my clock on my phone to say, hey, you need to go get hydrated. We'll come back and we'll do a full show on hydration. But right now, this fast that I'm doing is completely void of any calories. Okay. One of the big things that people talk about is getting hydration fluid. And once again, we'll come back and talk more about that. But Joe, I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we are safe as we're fasting, and I'll talk about something here in a minute. Let's see. Joe says, I'm weighing 197, trying to lose weight to 177. Joe, I love that question because this is a great place for me to do a segue. So I've been talking about blood sugar and ketones, but one of the things that I want to do is I want to go over here, and this is my This is my Fit Index. It is a app that goes with a scale that I have here at the house, and you can use any scales. You can use any scale. But here's the Fit Index, and in the course of the fast, remember we're fasting, and we're fasting because there are a lot of benefits that come from fasting. Blood sugar control, right? Dropping that A1C. Obesity, so weight, and we'll come, that's where we're heading right now. Metabolic syndrome, cholesterol, high blood pressure, fasting, and ketosis has been used to treat cancers. It's been used to treat seizures, right? So there are multiple benefits to fasting. One of the benefits that I have been sharing with you, and I've been keeping this number, this is my weight. If you remember last week or with the week before, we were 200. Let me show you that trend. Right. So we've been kind of straddling 210. This was back. When was that? That was back on the 2nd of January. Right. And in the course of our fast, I want you to notice, so now we're at 197. So let's talk a little bit about weight. So we tell people that we want you to, if you're losing weight, a good pace of weight is anywhere from half to about 1 pound per week is what we want you to do. I have been doing an intense fast. One of the reasons is because I want to show you the process of what happens. I want to show you the benefits of fasting. Okay. So about 1 pound a week. So that means I want you to hear me. If you say to yourself, well, hey, I want to lose 52 pounds for this year. That's 1 pound a week. If you drop that in half and say 26 pounds per week, 26 pounds for this year, that's a half a pound per week. So very doable. Very doable. So that's the rate at which we want you to do. And so the fasting has been an incredible process, incredible way of handling weight and handling blood sugar. Okay. So once again, so Joe, yes. He said, I want to go back here so we can see that. He said, I want to start at a 16-hour fast. So what I've been encouraging people to do, the challenge that I've given, Joe, is for people who are working with us, is if you currently don't eat for 8 hours, go ahead and add 2 hours to that. So don't eat for 10. If you normally don't eat for 10 hours, make it 12. If you don't normally eat for 12 hours, make it 14 and then 16 and so forth. So wherever you are right now, add 2 hours to it, extend it. Once you are able to do that, then add another 2 hours and another 2 hours. Our goal, our initial goal, our first goal for you, if you're working along with me, if you're following me, is to be able to fast for 24 hours or abstain from eating. So abstain from eating for 24 hours. Remember, that is about how long your body can store glycogen. Your body has enough stores in your liver of glycogen for 24 hours. So our first goal is how can we get to 24 hours so that we use up that glycogen that the body is storing. Okay. So great job there. Joe said he wants to get to 16 hours. Susie, hey Susie, how are you doing? She says, when your body switches to fat, you start to feel like you have the flu. How do you manage through that feeling? I love it. Great. And this is the keto flu, right? That everybody talks about, because the keto flu, once the body switches, if you are not following some simple things, then you can have a very bad experience. A lot of people quit, they stop, and they move away from fasting and keto diets. So number one goes back to some of the things that I just mentioned. You want to make sure that you are well rested. You can't be in the state where you're up and getting 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night, or 3 hours of sleep, or even 4 hours of sleep at night, and then decide that you're going to do the ketogenic diet or do a fasting diet. Because your body rejuvenates, your body replenishes, your body rebuilds while you're sleeping. And the process of going through ketosis, the process of going through fasting, by nature of where we are, your body is going to start breaking down fat. It's going to start reclaiming damaged tissue. That's this whole process of this idea of autophagy. Okay? So in the process of autophagy, the body goes and it gets tissues that are broken down and it begins using them, and it needs energy for that. So if you are not well rested, that's the first thing that sometimes people will say, hey, I'm starting to feel like I have the flu. Well, because you're not rested. Number 2, you want to make sure you're well hydrated. Now, hydration doesn't just help with blood pressure, doesn't just help with making sure you don't feel dizzy and lightheaded. It also helps to flush out some of the toxins. Because remember now, as you are breaking down fat, the fat that's been stored in those fat cells, they have substances in them that are now being released into the body. There are hormones, there are cytokines, there are things that have been sequestered in the fat cells that now begin flowing through the bloodstream. And if you're not careful, then those things can have an adverse effect on you. Okay? And then number 3, you want to make sure that you are monitoring your ketones. Monitoring your ketones. Now, there is a difference between nutritional ketosis and therapeutic ketosis. Therapeutic ketosis are those higher ketones, and it depends on where you are, what you want to do, how far into ketosis we want to go. Okay, so there are some basic things that we want to do there. That's a very good question, Susie, and I don't have my pen. Send me a message, please, and send me a message. Say, hey, can you talk a little bit more about the keto flu, and we'll come back and do that. All right. So Joe says my height is 5'9". He says, okay, 5'9". So 5'9". Now, if we there's a lot of controversy, but I'm going to say it. If we follow the normal BMI charts, okay, in terms of weight and where somebody should be, if you read all the guidelines and read everything that they say, for men, you get 100 pounds for the first 5 feet. 100 pounds for the first 5 feet, and then 6 pounds for every inch thereafter. Okay, for the first 5 feet, you get 100 pounds, and then 6 pounds for everything after that. So somebody who's 5'10", right, they get 160 pounds. Right? So somebody who's 5'9", they get 155 pounds. Is where that's the ideal body weight. That gives you a BMI of 25. BMI of 25. If you need to drop a BMI point, for each BMI point that you go down, it's roughly about 5 pounds that you have to lose. So if your BMI is 26 and you need to go down to a 25 to be a normal BMI, then you've got to lose about 5 pounds. Okay. All right. And then Susie says, would you recommend a 24-hour fast once a week, or how often? Yes. So Susie, I would recommend fasting an extended fast. This is beyond the intermittent fasting that people say, or the scheduled eating. And of course, that phrase just went out of my head. So yeah, I recommend at least once a week that people do a more extended fast, and that's the 24 hours or beyond. Definitely. Okay. That is what I will be incorporating. I have been doing, quote unquote, the intermittent fasting for a long time. And now am incorporating a longer fast in my regiment. All right. Let's see. What else? Okay. So we've talked about weight. We've talked about the metrics for the blood sugar. We've talked about where we want to be in terms of our ketones. Okay. And we've talked about some things that you want to make sure that you're doing, getting rest. You want to make sure that you are in the process of hydration, of hydrating yourself. Now, as you fast, and this is what we're going to be heading into in our coming shows. As you fast, there are going to have to be some changes. If you are currently a diabetic, you are currently taking medication, there are going to have to be some changes in your medication. Because as you see, and let me pop back over to these numbers. As you see, right, simply by not eating, I'm able to get my blood sugars down. We did a show last week that's called Can Insulin Rapidly Lower Your Blood Sugar Within Days? Yes, it can. Right? And typically for me, I go low, quote unquote, low, below 70 at about right before 48 hours or at 48 hours is when I typically go low. So it takes me about 2 days to get there. So you can imagine if I were taking medication for my diabetes, I would definitely have to back off or I would be significantly low. And so that's why I said we want to make sure that we are being safe. Everything that we're discussing, you want to make sure that you are talking to your healthcare provider. If you're one of my patients, one of my clients, if you're in one of my programs, I'm the guy that you talk to. If you're not one of our patients, one of our viewers, even I get people who send me questions, just like Joe just came on. I'm hoping that as we get through the year, that I get some folks who are, I don't want to say brave enough. I want to have some folks who are interested in sharing their stories with the community in general, who are willing to come on. And so we can actually look at your blood sugars, right? So hopefully having your records, your blood sugars, what your weight is, what your goals are, and we can talk through, right? Just like one of my sessions with my clients and my patients to say, hey, what do we need to do and how do we do this so that you are safe? Okay, because in everything that we do, we want to make sure that we're safe. So make sure you're checking with your healthcare provider. But yeah, definitely as we improve blood sugars, we're going to need to address medication. Because remember, our goal for this year, right, is how do we decrease medication? And in some cases, how do we get off of medication? And how do we put diabetes in remission? How do we put diabetes in remission? It's a big issue, guys. For the country, for the world, the World Health Organization says, we're between 430 to 460 million people around the world that are now diabetic. In the United States alone, 37 million people who are diabetic and 88 and above million people who are pre-diabetic. By 2050, 50% of the country is going to be obese. So we are talking about pandemic-size issues that we've got to begin addressing. And this year, as we move through the course of our theme, New Year, New You, that's what we're going to be addressing. You are sitting out there right now and you're saying, hey, well, I'm not diabetic. I don't need to worry about this. Well, if you're not diabetic, are you pre-diabetic? Are you obese or overweight? Do you have high cholesterol? Do you suffer from polycystic ovarian syndrome? Do you have metabolic syndrome? Do you have you had a coronary artery disease? Are you at risk for a stroke? So the things that we're doing, the things that we're discussing, touches so many aspects of our lives that this is a place for you. If you're in any of those categories or beyond that, you need to be here and you need to be working along with us. So 58 hours into the fast. We're coming down. We're seeing 72 hours is coming up here soon. We'll talk more as we get into the day about what we're going to do, how we're going to break the fast, and so forth. Okay? All right. Let's see. So Susie says, she says, when you break your fast, what will you eat first? So Susie, we're going to get that on the next check-in. We're going to get that's a great question. I love it, love it, love it. We're going to get that on the next check-in. And what I want to do is I'm going to we're going to break the fast, and then I'm going to start checking or tracking what happens to ketones and glucose as that fast is broken. Okay. All right. Well, hey, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for being here. Let your family, let your folks know that we are here. What we're doing, we are taking charge of our health. We're taking charge of our lives. Share this with them. Share these check-ins with them. Say, come on and just listen, right? Our goal for everyone is for us to get to a 24-hour fast. That's our initial goal. So once again, wherever you are right now, extend it by 2 hours until you're able to get to 24 hours in terms of the fast. Susie, great question, because that sets us up so that people know, that we're planning at least once a week to do one of these extended fasts. Right now, we're starting with 24 hours. And remember, if that 24 hours, that means that there's nothing that you're putting in. So your blood sugars are going to be coming down. A point that I made in one of our shorts is for a lot of people who are watching me right now, you are on so little diabetes medication that simply by doing a 24-hour fast once a week, you will be able to stop taking that medication. Let me say it again. You are on such a small amount of medication that simply by implementing a 24-hour fast once a week, you will be able to stop that medication. Here we're talking specifically about adults with type 2 diabetes. Adults with type 2 diabetes, right? There are some other medical issues that people have or medical conditions, I should say issues, where we don't recommend fasting. For instance, if you're pregnant, then you should not be fasting. You should be checking with your obstetrician, because during pregnancy, we want as much calories so that we can get that baby grown and to get the baby to term, right? If you're diabetic, make sure that you're checking with your healthcare provider. If you are, because you'll have to adjust those medications down. Okay, so make sure that you are doing that. All right, let's see what else. I think that's it. I was going to. And maybe let me do this. There are a couple of questions that we had that came in. And I'm going to do that I'm going to do one question really quickly. And maybe we'll come back and we'll do a show where specifically I just go through the questions. And this one comes from Beach Life. And this was on our channel. Let me pop it up. It says, looking at the graphs, you're pretty much at or close to 72 hours after 70. You're pretty much at or close to 70 after 24 hours of fasting. You mentioned a slight rise in sugar levels after 36 hours at around 6 a.m. Could this slight blip be because you have just woke up and other hormones, etc., have come into play? I love it. Great question. And the answer is probably yes, right? So what Beach Life 2968 is saying is talking about this idea that in the morning we get a hormonal infusion that wakes us up, gets us set for the day, and raises our blood sugar. So those hormones in the morning can increase blood sugar. So people, particularly it's dawn phenomenon, right, is what it's called. So when you get up in the morning, growth hormone comes out, cortisol, epinephrine, and those have the potential to raise your blood sugar. And so in a lot of cases, sometimes you'll be advised to not check blood sugars or ketones right when you first get up, but to give it about an hour and then check it. I check it both. I check it when I first wake up, and I check it maybe an hour or two later, because I want to see what those numbers are. Okay, and because I have a continuous monitor on my blood sugar itself, I can check that at any time. But great point, Beach Life. You're very, very correct that some of the blips that some people will see in the morning is an indication of the hormones that are being changed and hormones that we see in the body. Okay. More discussion to be had there. All right. Well, good, guys. Good. Thank you all for staying. Thank you for hanging out with me. As I say, we are taking charge of our health. We're taking charge of our lives. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, we educate. I educate. I empower. And I encourage you to take charge of your health, take charge of your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level, creating the life we always want. And in this year, new year, new you. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.